Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus reports, and this is Ben and Barry on football.
I am Ben of Ben and Barry in football. This is Ben Dickerson, your co-host. Still in search of my plus 10 win week. Haven't hit it yet. Won 8 games, lost 6 last week. I don't know what to say, bro. It's a tough season. It's a tough season. I don't know how the bias did, but I kind of remember that I went with the bias quite a bit. So I don't know. Did you figure it out?
There was what, 14 games?
14 games, I was 8-6.
So you're 57%.
Yeah.
And you were right. We kept saying that you were going with the bias a lot.
Yeah.
The bias was 71%. So there was a few times you didn't go with the bias.
Probably more than a few.
When I went back then and I looked at the games that the bias got wrong, it takes you back to the idea of what we're doing. We're looking at win margins. We're looking at points, and we're comparing the two teams based on average net points, basically, and turnover differential as our two fundamental stats. And we recognize things like skew, for example. And the Dolphins, for example, had the skew going for them only enough that they were favored by a measly 1.1 bias plus score. So we knew that was supposed to be close, but it had the Dolphins favored. And obviously, you know, what happened. You'll talk about that later. So we got that one wrong. Rams Packers got that one wrong. The Eagles, the Cowboys were favored in this by the bias. And when you talk about skew, that's still built into the Cowboys numbers, I do believe. So we're still figuring out just how real they were. And then finally, that Bills-Bengals game, you know, and I know you'll talk about them. So those were the 4 that I got wrong, you know, and that lifted it to 71%. So, well, I'm saying I got wrong, that the bias got wrong based on the net point comparisons and the turnover differential. So, but that ain't bad. That ain't bad. And we'll talk a little bit more about that.
No, 71% is great. That's tremendous.
So there you go. All right. We're going to get ready to kick this thing off. Then we're going to talk about each and every game that's coming up. We got a little something for all of them. So let's go.
While you're getting ready to put up that first one, let me remind everybody that this is the week that the Chiefs, the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Eagles will be on the bye.
Well, one thing I'm doing a little bit different, Ben, is I found this visual and I was like, hey, this could be fun. Let's put this up here and give everybody just a quick big picture. And you made the notation, if you look in the lower right, the bye week teams, there they go. And, you know, again, we talk about fantasy and managing your fantasy team around bye weeks. This must be a crazy one with the Chiefs, the Eagles, both of them on a bye.
That's going to hurt some folks.
So, okay, let's go with the first game. Thursday night, TNF. We have the Bears at the Panthers. Bias plus 2.8. That score favors the Bears. And as bad as the Bears have been with Mr. Bajent, Panthers have been a little bit worse.
Oh, gosh. Sheesh. Well, Tyson Bagent did his best to keep the Bears in the game on the road last week in the Superdome against the Saints. He threw for 220 yards. He ran for 70 yards, and he threw 2 touchdown passes. But he also threw 3 interceptions and lost a fumble. So we know, 4 turnovers by one guy. Gee, who does that? Kirk Cousins, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, for the team's total five turnovers came from Bagent or Bagent, however he pronounces his name. And that was basically the death knell for the Bears. And the Saints ended up beating them 24-17. Not a good look for the Bears. Now, as far as the Panthers are concerned, after treating their fans to a really big win over the Texans back in week 8, the Panthers were home again. This time it was against the Colts, but they couldn't duplicate the feat that they pulled off against the Texans. Bryce Young threw 3 passes that resulted in touchdowns, but only one of them counted for his team. The other 2 were pick sixes for the Colts.
When you said that, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, that don't sound right.
I don't remember him throwing 3 to say, yeah, he did. 1 for his team, 2 for the other team. And the other team ended up winning 27-13. So the Bears are going to be home. I'm hearing rumors.
That's 2 touchdowns right there, right? 14 points.
Yes.
They won. And that's the winning margin. Two
there you go.
Turnovers.
Can't get much better than that, but turnovers will do you dirty.
Oh, man.
And that's exactly what happened to them. So the Bears are going to be home in this one. Both teams coming off of losses, but the Bears will be home. And there's a possibility that Justin Fields will be back. Now, that's the only, I don't want to say downfall, but the only thing that kind of hurts some of my predictions doing the show on a Wednesday is like Thursday and Friday is when you really find out a lot more information about injury reports. They don't have too much to say on Wednesday, so it's kind of out there that Justin Fields may be ready. If in fact he is ready, I believe the Bears will handle their business at home against the Panthers. If he is not ready, I think the Panthers have a chance to pull off the upset, if you can call it that. But because I have to make a call, I'm going to take the Bears. I'm going to go with the bias. I'm going to take the Bears at home.
And the way I go with his name now, Tyson, I consider him a gent at the Bay. So it's Bay Gent.
Bay Gent. Okay, that's a good way to
doing it. So if I remember correctly, we'll go with that. You're going with the bias, favoring the Bears.
Correct.
The Bears. All right. Next up. Colts at Patriots. Bias plus of 11.6 favors the Colts. Now that's a nice bias. It's not super big, but it's a pretty, hefty bias, which just shows the state of the Patriots is really, them guys are struggling over there. And the Colts, they got a little Minshew magic, right? And they got their running back. Then the Colts are favored here by a bias plus of 11.6, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that they're favored at that level is because the Colts have a net point of negative 1.1. Okay.
Okay.
But the Patriots are negative 10.3. So the difference is all in the negative with these 2 teams. Now, the Colts also are a little bit better in terms of turnovers because they broke even at 0, and the Patriots are in the negative at negative 0.6. So when you put all that together, it kind of boost, is that the right word? The Colts final bias plus score from a 9.2 to an 11.6. But everybody's in the negative here, and it's just that the Patriots are a lot more negative than the Colts. So that's how that's how this came to be. That's how it is. And I like to point out when Well, I like to point out when all of the stats, the two stats that we mainly use, are in the negative. But since the Colts, they wouldn't go along with it, and they broke even at 0. I'm not going to call them negative. It's 0-0.
Good.
It is what it
Right,
is.
right. 0 on board.
So all right. So that's what the net points are saying. What about you?
Okay, well, all I'm going to say about this game is because I really like one of these teams and I really don't like the other. So the Patriots lost their game to the Commanders last week, 20-17. They had their opportunities. They didn't play very poorly. I can't say that. They had 107 yards on the ground. Ramondre Stevenson scored a touchdown on the ground. Mac Jones threw for 220. He threw for a touchdown. He also had one interception. But he did get sacked 3 times. And the Commanders' defense was pretty tough on him, especially in the fourth quarter. You know, with the final score being 20-17, you wondered, did they have an opportunity to maybe put a drive together and go down and try to kick another field goal and tie this thing, or tie back up, take it to overtime, whatever. They did have opportunities. Unfortunately, they were not able to put a drive together to get them close enough to even threaten to take this game to a tie. Now, the Colts, on the other hand, and let me say this now because it's in my head and I don't want to start saying other things and forget about it. Something to remember. The Colts defense, believe it or not, is pretty good. Now, I don't know exactly where they're ranked in our rankings because maybe you can tell me that, because that's just based on scoring, okay? But if you add some of the other categories on, the Colts defense is actually pretty good and they travel pretty well. Okay, the Colts are a tough team to beat. Now,
So let me say this, since
yes,
you brought it up. Average points against, Colts are ranked 29th. They're giving up
okay,
26.9 points per game.
okay.
Now, in the last 3 weeks, let's see how they've done. They're dead last. The last 3 weeks.
Wow, wow. Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Let me see something. Okay. All right. Now I got to back up what I said, right? So they played the Panthers last week. They beat the Panthers 27-13. They ran the ball pretty well, not great, pretty well. Minshew threw the ball pretty well, not great, pretty well. In fact, rushing, they only went for 76 yards total. Passing, it was only 127, but he did throw a touchdown. They did not turn the ball over. Oh, yeah, they did turn the ball over. Isaiah McKenzie caught a pass and dropped it. So that was a fumble. But defensively, let me say this. They hit Bryce Young 7 times. They sacked him 4 times. They had 4 tackles for loss. They had 8 passes defensed. So that means that the secondary played really well. And they played so well that cornerback Kenny Moore had 2 pick sixes. So you slap those 2 TDs on to what Minshew in the run game did, and that gives you a 27-13 win for the Colts. Their defense may not be ranked high, but they give teams a lot of trouble, trust me. And I believe in them. And I believe that they will go up to New England and they will beat the Patriots.
Excuse me, that was the Panthers that they held to 13, right?
That is correct.
2 pick sixes. With
2
Mr.
pick
Bryce
sixes.
Young at the helm for the Panthers.
Correct.
Okay, all right. And you're betting based on that game, you're going with the
No, not just that game. Come on, man. You know, I play fantasy. I've been watching them all year long.
Okay. All right. Ben's going with the bias, going with the Colts. That's it makes sense because
Tell me
again,
something. I'm curious. Where they ranked in turnovers?
well, again, they broke even at 0, so they're 12th.
Okay.
In that little grouping there. But okay, I mean, again, they should beat the Patriots. We're starting to wonder whether the Patriots are tanking for somebody. I guess Caleb's up in the air now. Will people be tanking for Caleb now? He's had his
Well,
emotional
the
breakdown.
The Cardinals still only have one win.
So you're saying the Patriots would have to do a lot more losing to catch up with the Cardinals?
The Cardinals have one win.
Okay.
Now there's a good chance when Kyler Murray comes back that they'll win 2 or 3 more.
I thought you were going to say there's a good chance that when Kyler Murray comes back, they'll still have one win.
There's a good chance of that too.
All right. Colts at Patriots. You're going with the Colts, going with the bias. Browns at Ravens. Ding, 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 ding. Potential intriguing game of the week as far as I'm concerned. The bias plus of 9.9 favors the Ravens. Now, we both know that the Browns defense, which is ranked 3rd, is only giving up an average of 17 points per game. However, the Ravens offense is ranked 6th. They're scoring about 26 points per game on average, except for Benny, maybe in the last few weeks. They are actually number 1, scoring 35.3 points per game.
Right.
So it's funny. We talked about their ascension over the last 3 weeks, and then after they won their game this week, all of a sudden their name is popping up in all of the media, and they're talking about, could be the best team in the AFC, could be the best team. But we had already told them, these guys are surging. These guys, their act is coming together. You better watch out for them. And darn if they didn't go do their thing. So tell me what you got in terms of this matchup.
Well, the Browns will be in Baltimore. The Ravens are hosting them. As far as I'm concerned, this one should be your intriguing game of the week. So I'm going to say that now. Deshaun Watson signaled his return from his shoulder injury with a first quarter bomb to Amari Cooper for a 59-yard gain. So he let everybody know right out of the gate that now he feels like he's back and his shoulder is good. En route to a 27-0 shutout of the Arizona Cardinals. Watson threw 2 touchdown passes, and the defense completely stifled the Cardinals with 7 sacks, 10 quarterback hits, 10 tackles for loss, and 8 passes defensed.
Who was quarterbacking for the Cardinals?
Who was quarterbacking for the Cardinals? It was a rookie. His name is Clayton Tune. Tune.
Okay.
Yes.
They were tuning them up, eh?
You could say that, yes. They tuned up the entire team. So now, for the 3rd consecutive week, the Ravens have scored 30-plus points. This was a 37-3 blowout of the Seahawks. Kind of surprising to me that they handled them the way that they did, because I thought the Seahawks were playing pretty well up to that point. They did most of their damage on the ground, did the Ravens. 298 total yards on 41 total carries. They almost had a 300-yard rushing game.
Oh,
that's incredible. Yeah, they ran all over the Seahawks.
And it's getting cold, Benny. So this is the time of year when the run game really has to kick in.
Run game needs to kick in, and there's some teams that need to get theirs cranked up because they're going to either have cold weather where they are, or they're going to have to travel to a cold weather location. So they need to get it cranked up, but Baltimore does not have that problem. Of that 298 total yards, 60 yards on 10 carries for Lamar Jackson, 2 touchdowns on the ground by starting running back Gus Edwards, 138 yards and a touchdown for an undrafted free agent by the name of Keaton Mitchell, who was flying off the waiver wire in fantasy.
Was
People
he?
didn't know nobody knew who this dude was. But he's getting picked up left and right, right and left.
Wow.
There's a chance he may not even get any carries in the next game. But you know what I'm saying? Because some people will say because of the score that a lot of what he did happened in so-called garbage time. But you can't poo-poo 138 yards and a touchdown for an undrafted free agent. And I think he did it on like 6 to 8 carries. He just exploded on the Cats. And let's not forget,
like, that's Gardner Mitchell.
yeah, Keaton Mitchell. And we can't forget the defense because we've been talking about the Browns defense for some weeks now. The Ravens defense is no joke at all. 4 sacks, an interception, and a fumble recovery. So, I like and respect what the Browns have been doing. I know Deshaun is back. He showed a little bit of rust, but his arm looked pretty good. And the Browns defense is kind of formidable. But I believe the Ravens at home will win this game. And
over the last 3 weeks, the Ravens are number 1 in points against, allowing an average of 11.
Yes.
So,
where are the Browns the last 3 weeks?
The Browns, last 3 weeks, Cleveland. Well, they're down there 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. They're around 13, 14th place.
Okay.
They're allowing 20.7 points per game.
Yeah. Going with the Ravens.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that sounds like a good one to me. That sounds like a winner for sure. Going with the Ravens against the Browns. Next up, Benny, we have Packers at Steelers. Bias plus of 1.3. 1.3 favors the Steelers.
This is a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those where it turned on the turnovers. The bias Packers actually were better. The Steelers are minus 3.8. The Packers are plus 0.1. But the Packers are the negative 0.3 in terms of turnover differential, and the Steelers are plus 1. So with such a small net point advantage, it just did not work out well. And the Steelers end up being favored in this particular situation. Packers were plus 3.9 and the Steelers were 1.3 in terms of the turnover. Once you calculate that, put that Pythagorean calculation on it, it came out Steelers. So this is going back and forth. Yeah. Now, where are you at with Jordan Love?
Well, it's funny. I say this is a tough game to pick because Jordan Love and Kenny Pickett are 2 guys that people think are going to be pretty good. And then they throw up a stinker and you go, oh my God, I can't believe I thought this guy was going to be good. Then they come back and they play pretty well. Then they throw up another stinker. So it's tough to call here. Pickett wasn't very good in this last game against the Titans, but the Steelers' ground game was pretty good. They actually outplayed Derrick Henry in the Titans' run game, and the defense brought Titans quarterback Will Levis back down to earth with 4 sacks, 10 hits, and an interception. So the Steelers' defense is still got some juice.
Right back down to earth.
That brought them right back down to earth, and the Steelers beat them 20-16. So good job by the Steelers, especially their run game and their defense, which if you don't have a run game and a defense, what the heck? Now, the Packers ended a 4-game losing skid by defeating the Rams last week 20-3. Good for them because that 4-game losing streak was looking really bad for the Packers and especially for Jordan Love. I'm starting to lose faith. In fact, I was watching them play, and I was thinking back to when I told you some years ago that I thought Jordan Love was going to be a bust. And I'm thinking to myself, now I see what I saw. You know what I mean? But I'm not giving up on him yet because I decided I was going to give this guy a chance. And I didn't think he was terrible, but he wasn't very good in this game. Well, he was good enough in this game because they won the game 20-13. Actually, Aaron Jones scored a first quarter touchdown and ran for 73 yards on 20 carries. That pretty much led the way. The entire rushing attack put up 184 yards total. Jordan Love did throw a touchdown pass to rookie tight end Luke Musgrave. That was his first career professional touchdown catch. And the defense had two, this is the odd one, you don't hear this every day, two rookie 7th-round draft picks in the secondary, starting at cornerback and safety. The corner's name is Carrington Valentine. He defensed 3 passes, and safety Anthony Johnson Jr. had an interception. 2 7th-round draft picks had to start because of injury and played extremely well. That being said, I think the Packers going to have a tough time going into Pittsburgh. I'm sure the weather won't be terrible, but it ain't going to be great. Not that that matters to the Packers.
Yeah,
but,
if anybody.
Yeah.
Well, Packers and Steelers, both cold weather situations.
Right. But I think the Steelers will handle them in this one. I'm going to take the Steelers.
Oh, okay. Going to take the Steelers, eh?
Yep.
Going with the bias. Going with the Steelers. Okay. Texans at Bengals. This is also a potential intriguing game to me. So you got a bias plus of 1.7 favoring the Texans. But we know what kind of tear those Cincinnati guys have been on lately.
That's true.
I mean, man. Let me see here. As I look at the net point rankings over the last 3 weeks, Benny, I see Cincinnati and 1, 2, 3, 4, about the 5th position, winning at a +8 margin on average. So, I mean, they're not as hot as Baltimore, winning at a +24.3 margin over that period. But we know where they came from, and we know what they're doing now. So the Bengals, I think, are going to provide a great test for this young Texans team.
It's funny. I was thinking to myself, the Texans are going to give a nice test for the Bengals.
Oh, is that what you were thinking?
That's the way I was thinking.
Okay. Well, we're both loving on C.J. Stroud. Go ahead and talk about it.
Both teams had huge victories this past weekend. Down by 4 to Tampa Bay with 46 seconds left in the game, C.J. Stroud drove the Texans down the field, and with 6 seconds left at the end of the drive, he threw the winning touchdown pass to Tank Dell. Tank Dell's a little 5'9" receiver. I believe I read someplace that they're like best friends or something. But anyway, they beat the Buccaneers in a barn burner, 39-37. Very entertaining game to watch, extremely entertaining. Stroud was tremendous. He threw 5 touchdown passes in total for a rookie record of 470 yards. C.J. Stroud, what a guy, boy. And we both love him.
How many fantasy points did he produce? Any idea?
I can look that up for you real fast.
Yeah, I mean, this had to be like a record fantasy points.
Well,
I don't know.
No. I can remember a few years back, Mike Vick put up something astronomical.
Really?
It was insane. It was was like 7 touchdowns and 400 something yards and
Oh my goodness.
200 yards rushing. It was the
Now, I know
fantasy
you've been
machine
doing
worked.
fantasy for a long time, but you weren't doing fantasy when Gale Sayers was playing, right?
No,
Okay. All right.
no. I started I think fantasy became a thing probably in the 70s, but I didn't start playing until I want to say the late 70s, early 80s,
Okay.
something like that. Yeah. But anyway, put all in there. Yeah. So yeah, we're loving CJ Stroud. That's my guy. I love him. And they really believe in their coaching. Their offense is extremely formidable. Their skill position players, although their run game isn't up to par. Damian Pierce, I believe, is injured, and Devin Singletary is fair to middling. But CJ's on fire right now, and he's got 3 really good receivers. Not only Tank Dell, but Noah Brown is really good, and Nico Collins. 3 no-name dudes, man. But these guys can all fly, and they can all catch the ball. So now let's talk about the Bengals real quick. After losing 3 of their first 4 games, the Bengals seem to have found their stride, and they won their 4th in a row. So they lost 3 of their first 4. They've now won 4 in a row. They won 24-18 over the Buffalo Bills. That was the Sunday night game last Sunday. Big difference between a gimpy Joe Burrow and a healthy Joe Burrow. That's for sure. He's moving a whole lot better, running every once in a while and moving very well in the pocket, or doing that dance, as you like to say. He's looking really good doing that now. And he threw for 348 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had no turnovers. The Bengals defense looks much improved also. They recorded 2 takeaways, but they didn't have to do too much because the offense had a stranglehold during the time of possession. So Joe Burrow and the offense just went out on the field and ground out long scoring drives, one right after the other, ate up all the time of possession, kept the Bills defense on the field, and kept Joe Burrow sitting on. Kept Josh Allen sitting on the bench. Texans, I love them. CJ, I love them. I think they're going to go in there. They're going to give the Bengals some trouble, but the Bengals are on a big time roll right now, offensively and defensively. So I have to go with them at home. Cincinnati at home.
Yeah, it's who was that? Baker Mayfield that took him to the rank last week with the
Look who, the
Bucks.
Bengals?
They took the Texans.
Oh, yeah. That was a shootout. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're in shootouts with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, 39-37.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough coming up against a healthy Joe Burrow.
Yep.
So, but CJ looks up to every type of task, man. I mean, his arm is no throw he can't make, really. It looks like he can pretty much make them all.
Oh, yeah, he's looking great, man.
I'm telling you.
I can't. Let me fix mine. Oh. And plug this in here. There we go. Okay. Yeah, let's see. We were talking about CJ, right? Last week, CJ put up 60.8 fantasy points. So a good day, a really good day for a quarterback would be like what he did against the Colts back in game 2, 32.5. Jacksonville, he put up 24.6. Pittsburgh, he put up 26.8. So 60.8, that's huge. If you started him in your fantasy lineup, you would have had to have a bunch of cripples on your team to not win.
To not win.
Yeah, when you get that kind of production from one player, you're pretty much guaranteed.
All right. Ben's going with the Bengals over the Texans. All right, here we go. Saints at Vikings. Bias plus of 6.9 favors those Saints, Benny. But they don't know. They got a rocket scientist at the helm of the Vikings right now. They don't know about that guy. What do you say? He's not an average smart guy. He's like a smart guy. He's like smart squared. You know what I mean? But
Smart squared.
that Saints defense is ranked 7th.
Are they?
Yeah, that Saints defense is only giving up 19 and a half points per game. Their offense is modest, only scoring 21.7, but that gives them that small plus positive rather differential there, and they're going up against those Vikings now. The Vikings 17th on defense, giving up 21.1 points per game. 13th on offense scoring. So they're very close. They're very close. I think the difference here it has to be in the turnovers. Yeah. The Saints are much better. They're at plus 0.9 and the Vikings are minus 0.6.
Yeah, let's remember the Vikings a few weeks ago were clearly number one in giveaways. So I don't know how much that could have changed over the last couple of weeks. Probably not much. So the Saints beat the Bears last week, 24-17. They had two distinct heroes in this particular game. All-purpose guy Taysom Hill caught a touchdown pass from Derek Carr, and he threw a touchdown pass to tight end Juwan Johnson. Those two touchdowns made a little history for old Taysom Hill. They made him the first player since New York Giants Hall of Famer Frank Gifford to score 10 or more times as a passer, a runner, and a receiver.
Wow.
So he's in some rare air, man, because Frank Gifford is definitely a Hall of Famer. Frank Gifford was a star back in his day. That's back around the time I believe Frank Gifford was probably he was definitely on the team when I first adopted the Giants as my favorite team. And we're talking back when I was like maybe 10 or 11 years old. I used to love Frank Gifford. He used to do the Brill Cream commercial where he put the stuff in his hair and combed his hair back. And he did a cigarette commercial too.
They would do stuff like that back in the day.
Yeah, I think he smoked Marlboros or something. You know what I mean? I thought he was so cool, man. I was like, Frank Gifford, that's my guy. I love Frank Gifford. But anyway, the other hero for the Saints was cornerback Paulson Adebo, who intercepted Tyson Bagent twice and also forced and recovered a fumble. So those plays alone pretty much sealed up the deal for the Saints in that game against the Bears, which was 24-17. Probably sounds closer than it actually was. Now, let's talk about another hero. After losing quarterback Kirk Cousins to a torn Achilles, the Vikings traded for quarterback Josh Dobbs from the Cardinals on Tuesday, October 31st. They consummated the trade. I thought it was a smart move. He's a trusted backup. He's been in several different systems, and he started the 8 games for the Cardinals this season. So he's fresh off of being a starting quarterback, you might as well say. Because the next game was on Sunday, that Sunday coming up, November the 5th, head coach Kevin O'Connell decided to start a rookie backup, Jaron Hall, because he's been in the system since, the beginning of the season, and he knew more about the Viking system than Josh Dobbs did, having just got there. Okay, that's great. So you decide you're going to start Jaren Hall, even though he's a rookie, even though he hasn't played in a real game yet. You give him all the snaps in practice in preparation for the game, meaning that Dobbs is basically the backup and didn't get hardly any snaps that week. Whatever meetings he went to, he could only probably get but so much information. Well, guess what happens? Jaren Hall goes out there, gets his brains blown out. No, I'm sorry. He got he got knocked in the next week, had to go to the blue tent, go in the concussion protocol. And then Dobbs comes in, and after getting sacked for safety early on, ends up leading the Vikings to a 31-28 victory. He threw 2 touchdown passes. He was 20 of 30 for 158 yards, mostly dinking and dunking, mostly. Didn't throw a whole lot of long balls. He also ran 7 times for 66 yards. Now, I'm going to tell you this. One of those 7 carries for the total of 66 yards was a 22-yarder on 4th down to keep the final drive alive before throwing the go-ahead touchdown to Brandon Powell. He also had another 4th down run that went for a first down that he almost scored on earlier in the game. So, I mean, we could talk about this all day about how Kevin O'Connell had to talk to him through the headset and not only give him the play, but try to explain the play in the short amount of time that they allow them to actually communicate. And then he has to go into the huddle, say the play that he only partly understands to the receivers whose names he doesn't even know. Okay. And still come out and pull off the win here. I'm telling you, man, I'm so impressed with Joshua Dobbs. I really, really am. I don't think the Saints are going to be able to go up there to Minnesota and beat them once he learns the system. And trust me, if he did all that last week, I'd say he'll probably learn their entire system this week and be ready to go as if he's been there all year. So I'm going with Josh Dobbs and the Vikings.
Going against the bias, going with the Vikings. Okay, Benny. Let's see what's up next. Titans at Buccaneers. Bias +6 favors the Buccaneers. Will Levis went from having a great day to having a not so great day to being named the starter.
Titans Buccaneers. After throwing 4 touchdown passes week 8 against the Falcons, Will Levis didn't throw any touchdown passes, but he did throw an interception, and he was sacked 4 times, and they lost to Pittsburgh. He was only 22 of 39. He only got 75 yards on 17 carries from Derrick Henry. Now, 75 yards on 17 carries isn't like terrible, but it's surely not good enough when your quarterback isn't getting much done. So that was a bad game for them. Now, Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield threw for 2 touchdowns. Both of them went to tight end Cade Otton, or Otten, I think it's pronounced Otten. And running back Rashad Johnson scored twice on the ground also. The Bucs went toe-to-toe with the Texans, but they ended up losing 39-37. It didn't help that their defense gave up a total of 523 yards.
Oh, man.
Good God. No wonder they lost. But they tried. They tried to hang in there. Just when I thought the Buccaneers defense was kind of coming around, and I don't know where they are in the rankings, but the Texans pretty much had their way with them. I mean, C.J. Stroud destroyed their secondary. He ripped it to shreds. I don't see the Titans defense being able to stick with Baker Mayfield, though. I really don't. Like I said, Baker wasn't great but he did put points on the board. He did engineer some drives, and he did put them in position to threaten to beat the Texans, even though the Texans ate up a lot of clock with some long drives and put up big numbers yardage-wise. So I think Tampa Bay will be able to handle the Titans at home. So I'm going to go with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, the Buccaneers over the last 3 weeks are actually ranked 29th in points against. They're giving up an average of 26.3 points over those last 3 weeks. But
that's a little skewed, though, right?
A ton of points last week.
Right. So we got a little mini skew.
Yeah, Well, I don't know if that's a skew or if that's just them, That's the
They gave up
Buccaneers.
39.
Huh?
They gave up 39 in one game. That's a mini
yeah.
skew. That's a little bit of a skew.
All right. Going with the Bucks. Going with the bias. Shucks now. My beloved 49ers. Back in action after the bye week. Going against the Jaguars. The bias plus of 4.8 favors the Niners. And my Niners, after having a 3-game losing streak, are still pretty high in the rankings because we were winning by great margins and putting up great points early on, averaging 30 a game and all of that kind of stuff. Then we ran into this Joe Burrow guy and broke the streak and got worse after that. Right now, though, I know I've heard that Debo's coming back, and who else somebody else is coming back, but I don't know if my left tackle Trent Williams is coming back,
and he's
That's
very
the
important.
one that I'm most concerned about.
He's extremely important.
Yeah. So this would be an intriguing game if it wasn't my team. Because the Jaguars, let's face it, they're playing pretty good ball right now. Jacksonville, in terms of points against, is like 8th in the last 3 weeks. They're only giving up about 18 points per game. So, Purdy, are you with me? Let's go. What you got, Benny?
Well, this is one of those rare times when both teams are coming off the bye.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's right, Jags.
Yes,
too.
both teams are coming off the bye. So I went back to week 8 to see when they played last. The Niners back in week 8 had a bad loss at home to the red-hot Cincinnati Bengals that you mentioned. It was 31-17, did not look good at all. The Jaguars won their last game, a 20-10 beatdown on the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Now, I love your team. I always speak well and highly of your team. But Dougie P got something going on down there in Jacksonville, Duval County or whatever they like to call it. This is a tough one for me. I'm not exactly sure which way I want to go here. Give me a little help with what's the bias again?
It's not big. It's 4.8.
Okay, so tell me this. Where are that's not really going to help me.
Let me just give you a couple stats real quick. The
Okay, go ahead.
Jaguars
Help me out. Yeah.
In net points, they're
Some food for thought.
6. The 10th in scoring, 24.1 points. They're 8th in defense, only allowing 19.5 points per game, and 7th in differential. So, they've been playing strong. Now, my Niners are 2nd in net points, but again, we're at plus 9.8. We were 4th in scoring, averaging 27.3 points per game, and 4th now in defense, allowing 17.5. We were at 15 a couple weeks ago, so these losses are pushing us down a little bit. But 9.8 average net points versus 4.6 average net points. So we still look good. The question is, do we have our mojo back?
Well, here's the funny thing. So I got a good number of fantasy teams with a good number of Niners and Jaguars on them. So I suffered this past week with both of them being on the bye. I won a couple games without them, and I lost some games that I'm pretty sure I would have won if I had them. So now everybody's back. So all I can hope and pray for is a high scoring game where everybody that's on my fantasy team does well. And then I won't care who the heck wins the game. As long as McCaffrey, Purdy, Ayuk, Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley, ETN, as long as they all play well, which means in order for them to all play well, it has to be a high scoring game, I'll be happy. But at this point right now, needing to pick a winner, I'm going to go with the Niners. I probably shouldn't.
Niners.
In fact, oh, wait. That's a 1:00 game, ain't it?
I do believe.
I'm taking the Jaguars.
He switched in midstream. 1:00 game in Jacksonville.
Yep.
So you let the travel thing, the 1:00 thing, on
Yes.
the West Coast to East Coast.
Yes.
Okay, all right. You let that swing you. All right, going against the bias.
Yes.
Going with the Jaguars. Okay, next up, Benny, we have the Falcons at the Cardinals. Bias plus of 4.6 favors the Falcons. The Falcons, Benny. And again, this is one of those situations where both teams are in the negative in terms of net points. However, the Cardinals are just more negative than the Falcons. Neither one of these teams are in the top half of anything. So, it just came down to who's less negative, and that would be the Falcons. Little less negative, differential 4.6 favor those Falcons. Who you got?
Okay, so Desmond Ridder is still out. So the Falcons are led by quarterback Taylor Heineke, a guy that I like, a guy that I thought Commanders should have held on to. No disrespect to Sam Howell, who's playing really well. I just happen to like Taylor Heineke. He played well, but they came up short against the Vikings 31-28. And that was at home in front of their home crowd. So, I'm sure that didn't sit well with the crowd, but they did play well. They leaned very heavily on their run game, which the Falcons usually do. And kicker Younghoe Koo helped keep them in the game also with 4 field goals. But when you're in a back and forth game and you're trying to get yourself in position to maybe pull off a win at the end, it's tough to do when you got 4 field goals to keep you in it. That means you're not finishing off drives. That's not good for the Falcons offense. Now, the Cardinals had to start a rookie, quarterback Clayton Tune. They had to start him against Cleveland because they traded away Joshua Dobbs, and they needed one more week for Kyler Murray to get ready to play. The Cleveland defense was far, far more than the rookie quarterback could handle. Offensively, they only got 99 total yards. 99 total yards. That's running and passing total. And the defense basically was useless. They might as well not even been out there. So I don't see the Cardinals being able to do any damage here. I think the Falcons' run game will be enough to carry them over the Cardinals, even though the Falcons will be on the road. I'm going to take Atlanta.
Okay.
Going with the bias.
Going with the bias. Going with the Falcons. Lions at Chargers. Another potential intriguing game for me, Benny. You've got the net point ranking of 10 for the Lions and 11 for the Chargers. There's one measly net point separating the two at 4.4 for the Lions and 3.4 for the Chargers. Lions are ranked 9th on offense and 14th on defense. Chargers are ranked 8th on offense and 21st on defense. However, that adds up to about 3-point differential there between the two. So there you
Eighth
go.
on offense, huh?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said 8th on offense, huh?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. It's better than I thought it was, but I'm not shocked because I expect the Chargers offense to kind of be up there close to the top 10. So that makes a lot of sense. The Lions will be the visiting team. They're going to have to go into LA to play. They are coming off the bye. The Chargers rolled into New York last week, took care of the Jets on Monday Night Football. Austin Eckler had a nice game, scored 2 touchdowns on the ground. And Darius Davis scored on an 87-yard punt return. Also, the defense played really well. They sacked Wilson. Oh, we're going to change Zach Wilson's name to Sack Wilson. Holy mackerel. They sacked him 8 times. And they recovered 3 fumbles. Good. And he probably fumbled at least 2 of them. 2 of those 3. So, Chargers playing pretty well offensively, but the defense can't be trusted. Obviously, the Jets couldn't do much with them, but I'm sure the Lions will have plenty for them. So I'm going to take the Lions to win that game.
Going against the bias.
Yes.
Going with the Lions. Well, you know something. I think these are 2 teams that had one team just coming off of a win, but there's a lot of questions about the Chargers. And after the Lions got blown away by the Ravens, they all of a sudden looked, like a team that had potential defects, So they were beatable for sure. And a lot of people went from having them as the best team in the NFC to so I think this is really going to be for both teams a chance to kind of, show themselves as, their competitive capabilities, I guess I'll say, who's really, the pretender versus contender type scenario. But I think whoever wins this game is going to kind of be considered a contender for sure. What do you think?
Well, I believe the Lions are looked at as a contender already. The Chargers still have a lot to prove. But yeah, if the Chargers were able to win that game, then absolutely.
All right.
I would say they're in the playoff picture, but I don't see it happening.
You're going with the Lions going against the bias.
Correct.
All righty. All righty. Uh-oh. Giants at Cowboys. Biggest bias of the weekend, bias plus of 25.9 favors the Cowboys. I won't say a whole bunch about this, Benny.
Yeah, there's not a whole bunch to say.
Yeah, I'll let you go ahead and handle it.
As far as the Giants are concerned, there's nothing much to see here. They went to Vegas and they served themselves up as a get-right game for the Vegas Raiders, who are reeling at the moment, fired their head coach, made Antonio Pierce their interim head coach, and Antonio Pierce just so happens to have a Super Bowl ring from playing linebacker for the Giants. So I'm sure that a pregame speech was pretty interesting. He already gave one speech that ended up, I shouldn't say it ended up getting McDaniels fired, but it didn't help him. Anyway, so much for the Giants. Now, in a very important division game versus the Eagles, the Cowboys got most of their offense from their quarterback. Again, we live in Philadelphia. Sometimes talking to and listening to Philadelphia Eagle fans can be a chore. I happened to be out with some friends last night, and one of them, All of them are Eagles fans except for me and one other guy who happened to be a Tennessee Titans fan. As soon as we walked in and said, "Hey, man, how you doing?" to shake hands, the guy starts talking about how bad the Giants are. Dude, you're an Eagles fan. Talk about how good your team is. Matter of fact, you don't have to say anything. I'll tell you how good your team is. Okay? But for some reason, some Eagles fans just feel like they have to talk negatively about certain players and certain teams to make themselves feel better. Dak Prescott is one of those guys. But you can't say too much bad about Dak Prescott in this game. He basically carried the Cowboys into it and through a game that they had several opportunities to win. Unfortunately, they didn't pull it off. He may have been part of them not pulling it off with that play where it looked like he was running for a touchdown. He stepped out of bounds. But other than that, he played really well. They actually were only able to put up 73 total yards on the ground. So they needed Dak to work through the air. They didn't score any running touchdowns either. So Dak had to get most of the work done, and he did. He tortured the Eagles secondary for 374 yards and 3 touchdowns. They conveniently forget about those numbers. But I guess if you don't win the game, none of that matters when you're Eagles fans. But because we're doing an analysis here, it has to be talked about. 374, 3 touchdowns, and even though Philadelphia made several mistakes that could have helped Dallas pull out a last-second win, Dallas also had a few miscues, delay a game, emotion, and some other mess that took them out of perfect position to pull off the win, and they ended up losing the game 28-23. Now, that being said, this one's pretty easy. Cowboys are at home. Giants have really nothing going for them whatsoever. I mean, Saquon's actually playing pretty well. The problem is, after the early going and the Giants fall behind, it doesn't make sense to continue to run Saquon. So that's going to hurt his numbers too. But he's actually been playing pretty well early on in games. This one's pretty easy. Take the Cowboys to win.
All right. You don't have to beat yourself up too much on that one.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Commanders at the Seahawks. Bias plus of 7.1 favors the Seahawks. Seahawks could be looking at this as a get-right game. So could the Commanders.
Yeah, this is get right. I don't know. This might be a trap game for the Seahawks after that beat they took last week. Sam Howell threw an interception, and Brian Robinson, the running back, lost the fumble. But Sam Howell also threw a touchdown pass, and Brian Robinson also ran for a touchdown. It was a back-and-forth battle with the New England Patriots, but Howell had his way with the Patriots secondary. 29 of 45, 325, and the defense held on at the end, pulled out the 20-17 win. Patriots had some chances, could not get close enough to kick a field goal. Defense got the job done at the end. Commanders win 2017. Now, Seattle took a bad one to the chin in Baltimore, 37-3. It was ugly, ugly, ugly. Geno Smith got sacked 4 times. He threw an interception. He lost a fumble, and the run game got completely shut down. Kenneth Walker, that's probably why I lost a couple fantasy games that I normally would have won. Kenneth Walker did absolutely nothing. Nothing. The Baltimore defense was that good. Sam Howell.
Mr. Walker down. That's that's something. I mean, he's
something, right? Because he's an angry runner, as we know.
Yeah.
But that Ravens defense, there's a bunch of hitters out there, man. Now, Sam Howell scares me in this one, and he should be scaring the Seahawks also. But I believe that the Seahawks will bounce back from that ugly loss, and they will win this game at home with the 12th man cheering them on. It's not going to be easy, though. It's not going to be easy, though, because Sam Howell is a far better quarterback than people give him credit for. We'll see what happens. I'm going to take the Seahawks, though.
Going with the bias, going with the Seahawks, and that is the last of the 4 o'clock group of games on Sunday, Benny. It leads us up to the Sunday night game. Jets at Raiders. And the Jets are ranked 23rd. They're -3 in net points, but the Raiders are 25th. They're -4.1. So just based on that and the fact that the Jets had a slightly better turnover differential, they're favored by a bias plus score of 3.9. Zach Wilson, is that what you started calling him?
Zach Wilson. Watching the Jets offense is pretty painful. It really, really is. And people keep saying, oh, they got a Super Bowl worthy defense. It's so difficult. It's so difficult when your offense
goes. They are ranked 9th now. They're ranked 9th.
Okay, so they're keeping the score down. It's not turning into wins, though, because they can't find the end zone.
Man, they're giving up 19.5 points per game. Problem is they're only scoring 16.
Exactly. That's my point. So the Chargers defense put in a lot of work in this game against the Jets. Like I said, 8 sacks. They had 8 quarterback hits. They defensed 7 passes. They never really gave the Jets offense a chance to breathe. So, yeah, the Jets looked pretty bad in that game. The Raiders, however, welcomed my Giants into Allegiant Stadium and got a much-needed win for their interim head coach, Antonio Gibson. Antonio Pierce, who I mentioned used to be a New York Giant when he was a player. Rookie quarterback Aiden O'Connell played well. He protected the ball, no turnovers. The run game was rolling. Jacobs and the boys did a great job. They produced 3 touchdowns on the ground, and Daniel Carlson kicked 3 field goals. That put up all the points for the Raiders. Jets going into Allegiant Stadium will suffer the same fate as the Giants. Take the Raiders to win that game.
Okay, all right. Going with the Raiders.
Saying those words very often through this season. Take the Raiders to win, but I'm saying it in this one.
Going against the bias again, eh?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, that's Sunday night, Benny, which leaves us with Monday Night Football. Broncos at Bills. The Bills. And let me say something real quick before I go too far, Benny, because I think I might have skipped this. Let me just make sure. Oh, yes. When we talked about the Indianapolis Colts game.
Yes.
That is in Frankfurt, Germany.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's the Colts and the Patriots. And I do wonder if I'm going to actually try to even get up to watch that kid.
What?
I don't know if.
When's it start? Like 9 o'clock?
Yeah, 9:30.
Well, what time do you get up? My God.
It depends on what time I go to bed.
Oh
my God.
Man. Are you kidding me?
In any event, Monday Night Football, Broncos at Bills by a plus score of 15.7 favors. Take a guess.
The Buffalo Bills.
The Bills.
Okay. So, Bills are at home. That means Broncos are traveling. That's bad for the Broncos. They are coming off the bye, however. So, everybody loves Josh Allen. Let's face it. The guy's a stud ball player. But I think right now the Bills are kind of leaning on him a little bit too much. It's basically he's doing everything. He was 26 of 38 for 258 and a touchdown that he threw to Stephon Diggs. He also was the team's leading rusher in this game, which if he's not almost every game close to being the leading rusher. He ran for 44 yards on 8 carries, and he scored another touchdown on the ground. Unfortunately, Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense was clearly better than Josh Allen and the little bit of help he got from his offense. Hence, Bills lose 24-18. However, I don't think the Broncos can beat them. I just don't. I just don't. I'm going to take the Bills. I don't know. I don't even know what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be picking one of the big upsets of the year there if the Broncos come in here and beat the Bills.
Yeah, I don't see it.
The Bills are another one of those teams that we were talking about, like the Chargers and the Lions. It's still a question mark as to whether they're real contenders or not. You know, do they beat the good teams and they only beat the bad teams and all of that kind of good stuff? So I'm with you there, going with
just to be fair now, the last game the Broncos played before the bye was week 8. They did beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, you're right about that.
They were at home. They put up 24 points on the Chiefs defense, which is a pretty good defense.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. But I got to pick somebody. I'm going to take the Bills at home.
All right, you're going to take the Bills at home.
Yeah.
All right, Benny. Well, that wraps up the week 10. 10, Benny. 18 weeks in the season. We're now in 10, going to 10 as of tomorrow. So that's pretty big. All right. Well, look, that wraps it up for me, Benny. I don't have much more.
No, I think I'm good. I had something, but I can't remember what the heck it was. Oh, right. I wrote myself a note here so I wouldn't forget. Let me just, right. Remember way back in the beginning of the season, right after the draft, we talked about what used to be called the Wonderlic test, which is now called the S2 cognition test.
Is that what it's called now?
It's called the S2 cognition test. And some of the scores got leaked, and everybody was up in arms about CJ Stroud.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
His score was 18. Bryce Young had a 98. Will Levis had a 96. Even Anthony Richardson had a 79. CJ had an 18.
So
how you like me now?
Does that say anything about your ability to play quarterback?
None. And when it leaked and they asked him about it, that's exactly what he said. He said, I'm not a test taker. I'm a ball player. Bang.
All right. There you go. There you go. All right. Well, this has been Barry on Football again. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to click the like button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. And don't forget that we can be found at www.benandbarryonfootball.com. And you can find all the underlying numbers for the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus reports at www.sterlingnppr.com. Peace out, Benny.
Sixers beat the Celtics.